Mentoria.
Hi, I'm Ajay Mehta. I'm the content strategist at Mentoria. Today we have with us Mr. Ajay Mehta. He's a senior chartered accountant. He's been running his own practice for more than 30 years now. He's going to help us get a glimpse of what a day in the life of a chartered accountant looks like. Welcome, Mr. Mehta. Let's begin. So, GST, demonetization, so many financial reforms. How has work been?
It has been quite hectic. New studies, new literature, new laws, new seminars. So all this has also taken a lot of time of our professionals. But apart from that, there has been also a good opportunity for the professionals to develop new fields and new line for their own work.
So, how do you think this has affected careers in finance?
It has thrown a lot of opportunities for new activities, like people can become GST consultants, GST implementers also, because a lot of systems has to be changed in the companies in corporate world. So this has given a good opportunity in this field also.
Right. So let's go to the beginning. How did you decide that you want to become a chartered accountant?
After completing my 12th, in fact I wanted to pursue a science stream, but my parents were not in favor, they were not keen for me to go in that stream, so then I decided to go and start in commerce. When I was pursuing my graduation in commerce, our accounts professor, who was himself a chartered accountant, he motivated me and convinced me to integrate this course, and he said there will be good scope on it. So that's how I started learning my CA course. I appeared for my entrance. Then, of course, when at time it was inter CA exam which we appeared, and that cemented my interest into this course. After that, I also started my articleship with a reputed firm in Mumbai, and slowly, the more and more I got into it, I was interested to pursue the course. And with more learning the tax laws and other laws, it also increased my interest in doing law myself. So then I completed my LLB also along with compliance. So I think I would say if anyone who is an inclination of pursuing this course should have these sort of interest.
So, do you think 11th or 12th standard is too early to take this decision of pursuing CA as a career?
Not at all.
Why do you think so?
Actually, in my time, it wasn't early, and especially today, it's definitely not early. A person, as a student who completes his schooling by finishing his 10th, should take a decision whether he wants to become a chartered accountant, because it requires a clear set of mind if you want to pursue a chartered accountant course. It's not only a competitive and quite, I would say, difficult course to pursue, but it requires your basics and fundamentals to be very strong. When you start your 11th and 12th in the commerce stream, if you have your basic fundamentals very well done, then it will definitely help you to become a good chartered accountant.
So, what are the different sort of perceptions you think people have about this career? True, false? What is reality like?
There are two examples I can give you. One of a false perception and one of a true perception. People have a false perception that once you become a chartered accountant, you have achieved everything. You have achieved your goal. But that's exactly not true. And that's the beginning of the career, where you have still a lot to study, to update yourself and applying what you have already studied into the real life situation. So, once you become a chartered accountant, the goal is not only to complete your degree, but professionally you have to develop yourself to achieve and apply those knowledge to the real life situations. As regards the true situation, a CA profession has a very respectable name to it, and that is true. If you take an example, your clients or your people come to you with the problems of their finance, the issues which they face, the tax issues. So it's like compared to a doctor's profession where people come with the health issues. So when you solve them, you find a solution from them, you take take them to the right thing. So it's satisfaction, and they're also happy with it.
Right. You mentioned solving client issues. So if you have to solve issues on a day-to-day basis, what does a day in your life look like, or what does a CA do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, since I'm in practice, I can tell you about what a CA does into a practice. Normally in practice, a chartered accountant has either some audits to be done, or taxation matters, or some financial issues and consultation. In audits, a chartered accountant goes to his client's place, checks his books of accounts, discusses issues with them, ensures that those are in compliance with the laws which are in force. If you are on income tax side, then you have to know what are the laws applicable. If there are certain hearings to be done with the tax department, you prepare for it, and then you make your submissions and also appear for them. And there are other financial consultancy which you do, where the clients come to you with the problems of finance nature, investment, planning, etc. So you help them solve those problems. These are the basic works which a chartered accountant does.
In order to be able to do all these things well, what do you think are the skills that a particular student should acquire before beginning to work as a chartered accountant?
Basically, accounting and financial computing skills are the basic necessities. One should have inclination and interest in that. After having these skills, as on today, the IT skills are equally important. One should be good at operating the computer, software of accounts, and also with MS Office. After that, you also have a good skill of drafting, which is required for drafting various documents, reports, etc. when you are doing your audits or making submissions. You should have a good analysis of whatever work you are doing. So based on that, then you can actually apply what you have learned, like computing the figures, what you have come across, cross-checking it, whether they are correctly done, put. So all these things are the basic skills one should have when you want to pursue this course, so that it helps, or you can develop while pursuing this. The success rate is very low, as you rightly put out. But I think 2-3 qualities which is really necessary to pursue these courses, apart from your sincerity and hard work. You should have a good analytical and grasping mind, because what is expected from a professional chartered accountant by the institute is adapting the right expertise at the right place. When they ask you questions, your answers should be exactly what is expected from you, rather than putting too much information. On an average, for the final examination, the success ratio is between 5 to 10%. They have definitely the need to give a retry for these courses, but after a reasonable period of time, they should always think of alternatives.
So the mindset that you mentioned earlier, that you need to have a particular mindset to be able to do this well. Is it about hard work, or is it about being diligent? What is it?
Yeah, this course requires a lot of hard work, as I referred earlier. It needs sincere efforts, patience, because this is one of the course which is more getting tougher when you grow higher. At the initial, we have the entrance examination. Then after passing that, you have intermediate examination, which is called IPCC. And after passing the same, you go through the practical training of articleship, where you have to spend 3 years in a firm of a chartered accountant, and you learn the practical aspects of implementing the knowledge which you have gained. And after completing the same, then you appear for your final examination. So when you pass through all this together, you also side by side develop these skills. And then after completing the chartered accountant course, you you can start, you must have the knowledge to implement the same in the real life practical situation.
That sounds very interesting. So, do you think that the skills that these students get during their articleship are enough for them to be able to become good CAs, or do you think they can do something else while they're studying, some other skills they could acquire?
I would say if a student does his articleship very sincerely and seriously, then he will definitely acquire most of the skills during his articleship period. Apart from this, the ICAI, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, which is the governing body for the professionals like us, they themselves have got various programs and seminars for students, which is a part of the curriculum, which is the IT skills development programs. Then they have orientation programs, GMCS. So all this put together will definitely make a student a good professional.
If I had to ask you, what do the initial few years of a CA look like? What is the kind of exposure that they get, and what are the kind of responsibilities that they get to handle at the initial stage?
Initially, the period is quite struggling. One has to struggle hard to manage the work, the client, to obtain new work. So it will be a difficult period to go through, but it's a very good learning curve. You got to do everything by yourself. You understand the work, the client better. You do work from the grassroots level and until the finalization. So it helps you to definitely learn everything in life. So these are the period when one has to definitely take it to get to a higher level. Today, I think 95% of your students who become chartered accountants, they don't prefer to come in practice. They straight away go to their industry or big 4 CA firms and take up a job. The 5% who come into practice, out of that 3 to 4% have their own parents' practice, which they join. I think only 1% would be struggling to start his own, because initially I think 5 years you are nowhere, and maybe after that you will get into the basic level of surviving. In Big 4, they have many departments, so it all depends on which department you join, whether you are into audits, whether into management consultancy, whether you are into taxation, whether into forensic audit. So various departments the Big 4 has. So depending on the department you join, you are at first stage of doing those work. So there if you are at audits, you go to your clients to do the audit, manage the team of articles and the staff who are on the audit, do your planning, get the work done, prepare initial reports, working files, etc. For taxation, you have a client's problem which you solve by referring to books, case laws, sections, etc.
Going back to the GST consultant bit that we spoke about earlier, could you talk a little more about what that includes and maybe other areas of specialization that students who want to become CAs now could look at in the next few years?
Yeah, as rightly mentioned by you, what I said earlier, GST is a new area of work which is going to be the law of today and tomorrow. So one has a good scope to work on these laws, which will be an area of practice. Then other areas of work which includes forensic audit, which is an upcoming area today. It's an area of audit where you do work related to audit of legal documents and other matters during the court trial. Then there is other areas of work which includes capital market. Then you have mergers, acquisitions. Then you have foreign direct investments, where people from other countries, they want to invest into India. So that also a chartered accountant can get into, where they can advise their clients of the valuations. Then it also includes business valuations, which is another area of work which a CA can do. So next 4-5 years will be the main thing, where you can decide which area of work you would like to get. Then the only way they can grow is by going higher up in the ladder. From a business associate, then he becomes an assistant manager, and he becomes a manager, then slowly a director, and then he becomes a partner. So that's the growth. The work will not change substantially because he has decided his field of interest.
Given all this talk of technology, automation, artificial intelligence, taking over a lot of the jobs that humans do today, do you think chartered accountancy as a job or career is under threat?
What I feel that this technology, AI, whatever you call it, these are not supposed to be a replacement for a good chartered accountant. In fact, these are a good tools or aids for a good professional chartered accountant to do a lot of work. And what manual type of repetitive job which he was doing personally or maybe his assistants were doing earlier for him, that can be definitely reduced a lot. He has access to a lot of world of information at fingertips on a computer. He has analysis to be done. The computing part takes care of by the computer, but finally the decision, the call, the advice is of a good chartered accountant. So these technology and aids are always helping a chartered accountant and can never replace a good professional. My journey as a CA has been quite struggling initially. After completing my CA course, Accountancy, I started my own practice. My father did not have his own office where I could sit, so I was using an office on a part-time basis of my uncle. And after having my practice for almost a year with him, then I took an office on rent in the Crawford Market area, wherein I continued for a long time. And now I have purchased my own office where I am. So, but today's students, they do not have that patience nor the perseverance to do all this. So the best way for them, I would advise is, of course, which normally do today, to take up a job with the Big Four if you want to be into practice, and if you want to go into industry, you can go there with any good companies, whether it is for a service industry or a manufacturing industry. The student should first listen to his own mind and heart, that what he really wants to do. But whatever he has to do, he has to excel in that. Otherwise, he will have no big value or a good growth in his career. It cannot be a half-hearted effort in whatever he does. I think that would be the right thing. After doing my articleship, I got really much inclined towards the various legal aspects of chartered accountancy, and that's the reason I did my law as another degree, and that has been my a good area which I love to do it, and I am practicing more on that lines today. I would say that's like for any professional. It requires a 24/7 involvement, so you have to sacrifice a lot on your personal life, and that I would not really want today's students to really think of what they have to start. This is one of the very few courses, I would say, which has a very small minimum investment and has a good potential and a scope for a person to prosper in his own growth career. You take any other professional course, the investments are quite high compared to what business. But the difference between the two is there's a lot of hard work involved into it, a sincerity, which is a must, and a good application of it. These three things I think you can surely achieve, though it is competitive and difficult to become it because the success rates are very low. But if you have these qualities, you can always go for it.